Hello everyone, the content of this section is from the book, The Land of the Free and the Home of the Hilarious, author, Olivia Wilson. Welcome to subscribe The Land of the Free and the Home of the Hilarious. Exclusive copyright. Chapter 8, The Reagan Era, when jelly beans were the ultimate power food. The 1980s were a time of big hair, neon colors, and, of course, Ronald Reagan. The 40th President of the United States was known for his conservative policies, his optimistic outlook, and his love of jelly beans. Yes, you read that right, jelly beans. Reagan was famously obsessed with jelly beans and always had a jar of them on his desk in the Oval Office. He reportedly even went so far as to install a special jelly bean dispenser on Air Force One, just to make sure he always had a steady supply. But Reagan's love of jelly beans was more than just a quirky personality trait. He saw them as a symbol of American industry and ingenuity, and he frequently handed them out to foreign dignitaries as a way of showing off American innovation. And let's not forget the role that jelly beans played in Reagan's political campaigns. He famously used them as a fundraising tool, offering bags of Reagan's red, white, and blue jelly beans in exchange for donations. And during the 1984 Republican National Convention, he even had a giant jelly bean jar on stage with him, which he used to emphasize his commitment to American values. But it wasn't just about the jelly beans. The Reagan era was a time of economic growth, technological innovation, and social change. It was a time when people were optimistic about the future and excited about what America could achieve. So, the next time you think about the Reagan era, remember the jelly beans. They may seem like a small and silly thing, but they were a symbol of a bigger idea, the idea that America was a country of unlimited potential, where anything was possible. And if that meant eating a few jelly beans along the way, well, that was just the icing on the cake. The Reagan era was also a time of Cold War tensions, with the United States engaging in a global arms race with the Soviet Union. Reagan's foreign policy was marked by a confrontational approach to the Soviets, which included the deployment of American missiles in Europe and a renewed focus on the development of nuclear weapons. However, the Reagan era was not without its controversies. The administration faced criticism over its handling of the Iran-Contra scandal, in which members of the government were found to be illegally selling weapons to Iran in exchange for hostages. Reagan also faced criticism over his handling of the AIDS epidemic, with many accusing his administration of not doing enough to address the crisis. Despite these controversies, the Reagan era was a time of significant cultural and political change in the United States. It was a time of big ideas, big personalities, and big hair. And, of course, it was a time when jelly beans were the ultimate power food. 10 Legacies of Ronald Reagan. Reaganomics. Reagan's economic policies, which included tax cuts and reduced government regulation, are often credited with spurring economic growth in the 1980s. The end of the Cold War. Reagan's confrontational approach to the Soviet Union is often seen as a key factor in bringing about the end of the Cold War. The war on drugs. Reagan launched a major campaign against drug use in the United States, which included increased law enforcement and harsher sentencing for drug offenses. The Strategic Defense Initiative. Reagan's proposal for a missile defense system in space, also known as Star Wars, was a controversial and expensive project that ultimately never came to fruition. The Iran-Contra scandal. The Reagan administration was embroiled in a major scandal in which members of the government were found to be illegally selling weapons to Iran in exchange for hostages. The Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. In 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded just seconds after takeoff, killing all 7 crew members. Reagan's emotional response to the tragedy helped to galvanize public support for NASA. The appointment of the first woman to the Supreme Court. Reagan appointed Sandra Day O'Connor to the Supreme Court in 1981, making her the first woman to hold the position. Deregulation. Reagan's administration deregulated many industries, including telecommunications and transportation, which led to increased competition and lower prices for consumers. Increased military spending. Reagan significantly increased military spending during his time in office, which some credit with helping to bring an end to the Cold War. The War on Terror. Reagan's approach to fighting terrorism, which included increased military action and covert operations, helped to shape American foreign policy in the decades that followed. Thank you all for watching. This program is exclusively licensed.